the period which is central to the city, and the city cannot survive without this language. This is 1823, and so you can already see this is a period simultaneous to the time that these debates about language were going on in the writing of grammars and vocabularies and within official circles. And yet nothing is really said. So these are interesting simultaneous processes that are going on. But it's valuable for us to understand how this was not an easy process. This was, it isn't as if overnight Hinduized, Sanskritized Bengali came to dominate the language. There was a lot of there were a lot of struggles, there were a lot of complexities, and a lot of fractures within that process. So the next thing that I want to take you through is actually now, by this time, I think we should be coming to Halhed. And I want to take you through the grammar of the Bengali language, and that's Halhed, of course, over there. And that is from the preface, that's the frontispiece of his book. And you can see how this was actually a bilingual text with both English and Bengali featuring there. This is published in Hooghly in 1778. The earliest moves to reform this so-called unruly language and construct a linguistic agenda of some sort came from the British administrators and missionaries. A major task for these groups was the production of appropriate grammars, lexicons, and vocabularies which you needed to standardize the language. In the first ever Bengali grammar written in 1778 and the first ever printed book in Bengali, as I've said, Halhed presented the vernacular in its what he called the purest form as deriving exclusively from Sanskrit. The Bengali of his own times, he concluded, fell far below those standards. And it's interesting that he's almost swimming against the tide. So he's saying the Bengali I'm encountering is not the real Bengali. He's in search of something that doesn't exist. And in the process, he actually ends up creating what in his version is the ideal Bengali. And it will only become clearer, I hope, when we look at, this is actually very interesting. This is from the Halhed text. And those of you who can read this, and I appreciate not all of you will perhaps be able to read it, you can see by the name, it is of course written in the manuscript style to begin with, of course, that's pretty evident because it's in couplet form. But if you look at the orthography, if you look at the calligraphy, and if you look at the script itself, this is very different from the standardized Bengali that we begin to find mid-19th century onwards. Just one example is if you look at the last word of the first sentence. The last word is chule, but that's not a law, that's a no, for those of you who can follow Bengali. And that over time actually comes to be standardized into the law that we now recognize as part of the printed language. Okay, so these were the kind of uncertainties that people like Halhed encounter, and in their eagerness to prove this purer version, they standardized relentlessly and ruthlessly what is actually a very fluid language, and they standardized the orthography, the vocabulary, the grammar, and the script. So on various fronts, this standardization happens. I'd love to share with you this quote from Halhed's grammar, and this is part of his preface, and I think it's very telling. And this is what he has to say. The modern Bengali form of letters, their mode of spelling and their choice of words are all equally erroneous and absurd. So this is an Englishman telling a Bengali how Bengali should be written. They can neither decline a word nor construct a sentence, and their writings are filled with Persian, Arabic, and Hindustanic terms, promiscuously thrown together without order and meaning, often embarrassing and obscure. They seldom separate the several words of a sentence from each other or conclude a period with a stop. Of course, all of this, as we know subsequently, was introduced into the Bengali language. Halhed's working papers for his grammar clearly demonstrate how he was replacing a wide variety of alphabetical and orthographic representation with a standardized orthography. And in one of his working papers, and this is in the British Library and I've looked at this, if you look at his working papers and if you look at the annotations in the margins of his working papers, it's very interesting to see how he's constantly changing what is being suggested by his munshi, and he had a munshi helping him. And it's very clear in other works, and not just me, but other works have also shown how Halhed chose to discard this munshi and take on a Sanskrit Pandit into his service, because he clearly didn't like what the munshi was suggesting. And just one example of these changes that he was making. So he would collect various versions of scripts and texts from these various helpers who were working with him. And then he would come in and fine-tune what he found. And one example of this is how I found him changing the spelling of beer to beer, but it's basically based on the Sanskritic original version, veer, he thought, where beer is spelled with rashoi. Again, apologies to those of who don't follow Bengali so closely. But he changes the beer with the rashoi to a beer with the dirghoi, because for him it's more in keeping with the Sanskritic veer. So it's an extended V, E that he's going for, rather than a shorter version of the E. And clearly, we know where that's coming from. Following Halhed's grammar, we have Forster's vocabulary in two parts, English and Bengali and vice versa, that's the name of this work, which appears in 2 volumes. It is significant that it hardly includes any of the Perso-Arabic words that Forster had used with relative freedom in earlier works. So Forster had been writing for the East India Company for a long time. But over time, we can see, if we look at his works, we can see how he's slowly dropping the Perso-Arabic words and bringing in more Sanskritic vocabulary in his texts. Halhed's choice then decided the course of future grammars in the Bengali language. William Carey's, who's a very important scholar and Baptist missionary of the Serampore mission, who we will meet later, and G.C. Houghton's grammars, published in 1801 and 1821 respectively, were consciously modeled on Halhed's work. Through their concerted efforts, then, European scholars proceeded to standardize what they clearly regarded as an irregular dialect. Between 1801 and 1834, several such works were published that established the rule of Sanskrit over the Bengali language. Sanskritization took rapid paces around the turn of the 18th century through its application in standard printed works. Commissioned by the East India Company, there appeared 9 Bengali legal texts between 1784 and 1809. And one scholar has traced in these translations a clear attempt to supplant Perso-Arabic legal terms and phrases with Sanskritic equivalents, unfamiliar to the terrain of legalistic writing in the language before. And it's absolutely ridiculous if you look at these texts, how the Sanskritized words, they're not really equivalents, as Pavani Charan was telling us before, because there couldn't be any equivalents, because these are legal terms coming out of Persian law, and if you try to translate that into Sanskritic words, they don't really make sense. And yet, this is what was happening even in the realm of law. And missionaries, of course, they were another important category, very important group of people who we will soon encounter. So these were then the various groups who were engaged in this project of standardization. So what were these changes then? Well, some of them I think we have already talked about. One is the prevalence of Tatshamo, or Sanskrit loanwords. These are the characteristics of the New Bengali that was being promoted. Words in rustic or common usage of Perso-Arabic or other alien lineage and following lax orthography, seemingly, were purged. Verbs had to be compounded only out of Tatshamo words. These are all grammatical terms, and I won't go too much into that because it takes us off on a completely linguistic terrain. Sentences were long and complex and ridden with clauses. They were impossible to read, actually, as again we will find out soon. And there was a Sanskritic influence on syntax as well. It's interesting at this point to return to Halhed again. And I just cannot resist these quotes because they're just so very appropriate to our understanding and so very relevant. This is in his preface again. Such of the Hindus as have been connected, he says, with the Musalman courts or offices have generally complimented their masters by compliance with these Perso-Arabic literary innovations. But the Brahmins and all other educated Gentus still adhere with a certain conscientious tenacity to their primeval tongue and have many ancient books written in its purest style. In the course of my design, I have avoided, with some care, the admission of such words as are not natives of this country, and for that reason have selected all my instances from the most authentic and ancient compositions. And that itself tells you what kind of a project that Halhed was involved in. He was this one-man project deciding what the Bengali language would be like. So Srinidhi Kumar Chatterjee is a very important Bengali scholar, calls this a doubly artificial grafting of Sanskrit in the new prose style of the time. And he actually shows in his work how this is very different from the living language that was evolving during the period. We now come to the Fort William language to understand how this project was taking a more institutional shape. So we've talked about individual scholars, we've talked about people like Halhed, who of course were very important, but let's look at how this, this became a larger project in which the colonial state was involved, and in which, very important institutions like the Fort William College was involved. The people who have here, you have here on this on the slide, William Carey to the left, Baptist missionary scholar. His Baptist mission is set up in Serapur in 1800, and he's a pioneer in the printing of Bengali works and an extremely important person for Bengali language at this time. He, together with his Pandit Mrityunjay Vidyalankar, who you have seated next to him on his left and to your right, together they initiate a very critical phase in the Serapur Mission Press. And for the Fort William colleges as well, because together they start producing texts for the Fort William College, which bureaucrats, training bureaucrats of the East India Company at the college would be required to read, because vernacular training in the vernacular was an important part of the training of these young bureaucrats. He was also, but in fact both of them were also responsible for the production of textbooks for missionary schools, as well as proselytizing literature for the mission. So on all these three different fronts, the Fort William College, for educational purposes and for purposes of proselytization, they teamed up to produce a lot of books, of Bengali books, printed stuff for the time.